This video is sponsored by War Thunder. The gaming industry at large still has a lot of problems. Of the major problems and changes that we've been experiencing recently, there is one, however, that I find just absolutely hilarious. Well, at least hilarious in that, like, I prefer to laugh instead of cry type of thing, and that is gaming CEOs. It's pretty impressive how over the last month, but especially the last couple of weeks, gaming CEOs are trying to one-up each other in just saying the most absurd comments possible to kind of insult their audiences, you know, their customers, while simultaneously being confused why they don't sell more than they do. And look, you caught me. This isn't new. Gaming CEOs have been caught over and over again saying some of the most absurd things possible. If we go all the way back to John Riccitiello, the former CEO of EA, he once said that impulse purchases were the key to successful microtransactions. Therefore, if a player ran out of ammo in a match of Battlefield and you asked them to reload for $1, that would be an effective microtransaction. But hey, everybody slips up from time to time, and John went on to have a very successful career over at Unity. It's good to know that the failing upwards thing is not an EA thing, it's a John thing. Well, I say that as if current CEO Andrew Wilson hadn't said that AI is the future of making games in multiplayer, and also claimed that the problem with Dragon Age: The Veilguard is that it was a single-player game, and that under his watch, EA has actually underperformed even with its big heavy hitters, and somehow, he seems to be failing upwards towards being the new CEO of Disney. So, maybe it's an EA thing. The point is that we've had people that don't know how to read the room since the beginning of time, and that includes throughout the gaming industry. We can't forget stuff like Don Matrick telling people that you can go buy an Xbox 360 if you don't like the idea of being always online, which was copied just a couple of months ago by good old Doug Bowser over of Nintendo of America, who pretty much said the same thing regarding the Switch too. Hey, if you think it's too expensive, just buy a Switch 1. Well, you know what, Doug? I know which one has the OLED screen, so maybe that's not that bad of an idea. However, we're not actually here to explore the greats of all time. Oh, no. We're here to talk about the absolute disasters that have been happening in the gaming industry just these last couple of weeks. We're going to talk about Bungie's management over with people like Pete Parsons. We will actually talk a little bit about Andrew Wilson. He does show up here. We're going to talk about the CEO of Take-Two and Randy Pitchford and Leslie Benzies. And I absolutely love this because we're going to get to see people who are just absolutely clueless, people that are just straight up insulting to their customers, and also very cringe, deep-seated conspiracies and paranoias about the competition trying to take them down. And of course, the classic bragging about their salary before they fire their employees, and so much more. And I personally believe that it's really important to keep these things in mind and to call out these sorts of behaviors. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, a lot of companies' culture, philosophy, and vision of creating excellent games that we want to play does kind of trickle down from the top. So when the people at the top are absolutely clueless and their overall mentality seems to treat the customer like cattle instead of treating the customer like, I don't know, the customer, I think it's significant to what the public perception should be around not just these specific people, but the companies that they run. So there's a lot to criticize, but hey, I promise we're gonna have some laughs along the way, that's for sure. And also, by the way, hi, I'm Mug, and if you're new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, welcome back. I think you're looking absolutely fantastic. I don't know what plan you've put into motion, but Hot Gamer Summer, looking real good. And I mean, it's always great to see you. And if at any point you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it, because that means it spreads farther into the algorithm and more people can hopefully be informed and maybe have a laugh in the process instead of it all being just doom and gloom. And if you really like the video, don't subscribe yet. Wait until the end. Make sure I earn your subscription and your time. Let's get into it. We do have to start off today by talking about Strauss Zelnick. And good old Strauss, being the CEO of Take-Two, is in a privileged position. Take-Two as a company simultaneously manages to put out NBA 2K every year and make everybody mad, and also is the home of Rockstar. So hey, you know how much money that prints. And some of the problems with Strauss's recent comments is that they're actually pretty interesting. Speaking about GTA 6's delay, Strauss mentioned that it's important for the game to be perfect and that they're striving for perfection. He uses this word a lot, trust me. But he also remarked that he doesn't play video games at all. Kind of in the tone of like, video games, why would I care about those? He's like caveman businessman of just, I know big numbers make big money, I like big money. I don't know what games are. His specific quote is, I'm not the consumer in chief. And he believes that a good CEO probably shouldn't be. I do want to mention though that there's a pretty fine line between a CEO making playing video games his entire thing versus them playing games, like at all. Maybe, you know, the ones that you publish. Zelnick said, and I quote, "The delay itself is really a reflection of the desire to polish and create the best possible experience for consumers. We as a company have been known not to have slavish devotion to release dates, but rather to seek the highest quality entertainment, and that's really supported our success over many years." Now, I think it's pretty obvious that there's some confusing language here because how would he know it's the best experience for consumers? He's never been one of those. And not just here, but a lot of Zelnick's comments over the years come off as, look at me, I'm so smart that I let Rockstar delay a game. That was definitely, you know, that's the point where we found success, was because I'm so cool, I let them delay it. And we're getting to the interesting part here. So he says that he's not a gamer at all, and that when he was working in the TV business, in the movie business, in the music business, he was also not a consumer. But then he does say that he knows how to read a script and that he is a musician. So I feel a strong disconnect here of like, well, when I was in the music business, I didn't consume music, but I knew how to make it. So it just kind of seems like he's attached himself to this rhetoric that he thinks is cool or headline grabbing or something to just say that he doesn't like games despite being the CEO of the company that makes the most money from game. But he says that his role is to attract and motivate the best talent in the industry and then just get out of their way. And you know what? I really respect that. It is to a certain point very true. A CEO like Strauss doesn't actually need to play games or know what he's selling. I'm not saying that's smart. I think he should definitely know what he's selling, but you know, it's not required. What his real job is to put people that really love games and know what they're doing and are capable of making amazing games and caring for the people who are going to play them and placing them in positions of power where they can deliver on that vision uninterrupted. And that's where Strauss succeeds. Because the CEOs of the companies undertake to are all amazing. CEOs like Randy Pitchford. Oh, Randy just doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut. Now, we're just scratching the surface here. This gets a lot worse, but before it does, you know what gets a lot better? This video sponsor War Thunder. And War Thunder is the most complete vehicular combat PvP game pretty much ever made. And you can start playing for free right now on PC, Xbox, or PlayStation, and even mobile. It features over 2,500 very authentically crafted vehicles from the 1920s until today. And the 1920s was a while ago, that's why there's so many of them. But you get to jump into multiplayer matches and pilot tanks, helicopters, ships, and, of course, planes. I'm waiting on the trains and automobiles update, but that's coming later. For legal reasons, that's a joke. There's no trains and automobiles update coming. It's not just because you can pick from all of these real vehicles that have existed throughout history and jump into the immersive battles, it's the quality of them. There's an authenticity to every vehicle, which also translates to hitboxes and the precision of hitting things, and just like, they have this X-ray mode that shows you why you dealt like critical damage to key components of vehicles. But for me, the most important thing when I do jump in and play with them is that you can play War Thunder in 3 different modes. Sure, you can go full simulation, down to every little detail of how to fly these planes or pilot these vehicles, but you can also go for something in the middle. And if you're like me and you just like playing this game with your friends to talk about how your week has been, you can just go with the more arcade mode, and it's just fun. And you can check out War Thunder completely for free using the links in the description or the pinned comment below. And if you are completely new or returning after more than 6 months, you're gonna get the welcome back pack, which is just fun to say. Now, this offer is only available on PC and console, but it includes the exclusive vehicle decorator of the Eagle of Valor, 100,000 silver lions for you to spend in the game, and 7 days of premium account for you to get familiar with the vehicles that you'd be most interested in investing in. This bonus is only available for a limited time, so go ahead, click down below, and remember that when you do so, you also directly support the channel. So check those links down below, and a huge shout out to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. And a huge shout out to you for not skipping the sponsored section. Randy Pitchford, which is the CEO of Gearbox, has been around for a very long time, and he has never managed to keep his mouth shut. He's gotten in trouble time and time again from controversial comments over the years. He had a huge scandal and legal disputes over a USB drive that he left at a medieval times in 2014, which contained bad stuff, as well as being accused of siphoning over $12 million in funds from the company for himself. Now, a lot of those things are now either buried or resolved, and I'm not here to get in trouble by saying that things are true when they probably aren't. I'm just saying that he really does not know how to dodge a controversy. The most recent one was when he spoke about Borderlands 4 and what its price might be. Something that I previously spoke about, considering that Borderlands 4 is coming to the Switch 2, and we already know where the Switch 2 wants to establish the price of games, so $80 seems likely. Now, some of the quote was taken out of context, and don't worry, we'll dig into it because actually when you add context to it, I think it gets worse. But when speaking about the price of it and saying that that's not up to him, that that's up to the publisher, that he believes that real fans of Borderlands 4 were going to find the money to buy it anyways. And he talked about how when he was younger and he really wanted a game, back in the day when like the dollar was worth like 3 times what it is now, but video games would cost $90 and stuff, he would find the money if he wanted a game. Again, just like being out of touch seems to be such a common thing for these people. This had the internet immediately jump onto his comments, mentioning how he doesn't know how to read a room, and just how insulting to the customer this is. He kept talking about it and managed to continue to get ratioed by people saying that they were going to choose to just pirate it because $80 is ridiculous and not something that real Borderlands fans want. I really believe that what's bothered people the most is the way that Randy just kind of casually came out with it and just said that basically if you don't want Borderlands 4 for $80, it's because you don't love Borderlands enough. And just directly attacking the most hardcore of fans for something that is really, in many cases, not in their control, like just how much money they're currently making and how that is adapting with inflation and cost of living, is not really something people appreciate most of the time, Randy. Now, he did apologize for it before, putting his foot in his mouth again, most recently talking about how Tiny Tina's Wonderland is available for free on the Epic Games Store, especially for those more price-conscious Borderlands fans. Just he can never get anything right. It's insane. But what I think is actually interesting to dig into is some of the things Randy said up on stage when showing off Borderlands 4 and talking about it. Because it's true that it is not his call what the price of Borderlands 4 will be. And if he had just shut up and left it there, it would have been good.
So there's some folks that don't want to see prices go up, even the ones deciding what the prices are.
But he didn't. He did try and save it with a very noble intention. Like, I really don't like Randy Pitchford. You'll see why very soon. But he did make a point to say that since they don't control the price, but there is a possibility that the price of games is just going to go up to $80, what the team has been working on is making sure that what's in Borderlands 4 is going to be worth whatever the asking price ends up being.
But the fundamental philosophy is we want people to buy it so we have the resources to make more, but we want everyone who buys and plays a Gearbox game to feel certain that they got the better end of the bargain.
And that is a pretty nice thing to say, along with the gratitude that he expresses to the fans of Borderlands for making the series a success and allowing them to double the budget for Borderlands 4 compared to Borderlands 3. Now, is that budget going actually into things that matter? We'll have to wait and see, because it doesn't seem to be a common trend in the industry that people know how to spend money. $300 million for Concord, boys. But in one of the cringiest clips I've ever seen in the history of video games media, Randy goes on to make a joke about how maybe the game will end up being $70, and to make up the extra money that the publisher would want, they would put out DLC, like that mini-map that fans have been asking for, a very requested feature. Maybe they'd sell the mini-map to us for $10. What a funny joke, right? Like, take the thing that the community really, really wants and actually sell it to them instead of just giving it to them.
Maybe we'll sell you that mini map that you guys want, but we'll develop later. How bad do you want that? $10? I don't know. I'm just kidding. Or am I?
Good one, Randy. Wait.
I'm just kidding. Or am I?
You're so funny, Randy. You're so charming. Wait.
I'm just kidding. Or am I?
Randy, please stop. Please stop. Why? Why do you do this? Why? It wasn't funny the first time, Randy. Why'd you think it would be the fifth? Honestly, these CEOs just cannot keep their mouths shut. It's not so hard. Have they ever heard the expression, it is better to stay silent and have people believe you're stupid than it is to open your mouth and remove all doubt? So I'm not saying everything that Randy Pitchford did here is bad, despite how much I vehemently dislike Randy Pitchford as a person. I do think there's some valid messages to take home here. The general idea of developers saying, hey, guys, be aware that we are not always in control of the price of the game at the end of the day. That is a decision that's taken by other people. And right now, with all of the stuff happening around the prices of games, all we are doing as the people developing it is trying to make sure that what we offer you is worth the price of admission. We are actually trying to be competitive in the market by giving you something worth your money and your time. That is a fantastic idea. But just blurting out that little, if you're a real Borderlands fan, you'll find the money, when within the same debacle, he could have actually gotten some goodwill and some good press instead of finding ways to get incessantly ratioed on Twitter. Sorry, X, whatever. And at the end of the day, a lot of what Randy Pitchford's whole thing ended up being was him somehow retweeting a jab that Devolver threw at him about their upcoming published game Mycopunk, and that blowing up. So good for Devolver. Good move there. Accidentally, I guess. Great job, Randy, for bringing attention to an indie game. And then a really, really long, very long apology that he posted that just is so flip-floppy and uncomfortable in the way that he asks for people to just understand his perspective and try and really empathize with him, when what it all comes off as is that even if he is not responsible for the final price decision, he is a person that can very clearly communicate as the CEO, as the head of Gearbox, with Take-Two and understand the customer's perspective, which at the moment, when we look at the video game landscape, is I just paid $50 for Clair Obscur, one of the best JRPGs ever made, potentially one of the greatest games ever made, and you're asking me to pay $80 for Borderlands 4, a game that I know is also going to come with about 26 season passes, expansions, and DLC doodads and trinkets. And no, Randy. No, don't barter with me being a real fan or not. Just shut up. And you could say that it's just a screw up, but especially given Randy Pitchford's track record and what we're going to see coming up, I just think gaming CEOs have no clue. They are just not really into games in a way or understand the customer. They're just out of touch, which is a fair assumption to make about most CEOs ever. But in an industry like games where so many things are changing and where the overall relationship between the customer and the developers and the publishers is in such a sad state at the moment, I think we really deserve better people at the helm of these things, making projects that we as fans care about. Because make no mistake that Randy Pitchford's comments will actually affect the sales of Borderlands 4, as will whatever decision they come to on the $80 price tag, because I'm sorry to say, I'm really excited for sales now. We're still in the Take-Two universe. However, I can't actually go after Rockstar, but I can definitely go after some Rockstar alum. Oh boy, Leslie Benzies. Also known internally at Rockstar, and this is not a joke, as The Benz. Leslie Benzies is a very storied producer within Rockstar, known to be kind of a superstar that was there since basically day one. He earned a pretty great reputation throughout the years of working on these projects as a guy who knew how to make the right decisions as a producer and really guide projects along to success, including his input on GTA 5 and specifically on GTA 5 Online. The Leslie Benzies saga is quite complicated, and I'll leave a link down below to an article that covers a lot of the details, but to really summarize some of it, in 2014, regarding the production of Grand Theft Auto 5, Leslie Benzies ended up in a situation where he was demanding royalties that hadn't been paid to him by Rockstar and Take-Two specifically. This escalated into a lawsuit, and Take-Two countersuited him, and there was a whole mess happening with him getting locked out of his company computer and his company BlackBerry. Remember Blackberries? Apparently Sam Houser and him stopped talking, and there were even issues about who was first on the credits because Leslie wanted to place himself above the Houser brothers and stuff. It's a big old mess that was really the talk of the town back in 2016 for a hot minute there, and it's safe to say that nobody involved in any of that really came out of it looking good, neither the Housers nor Benzies. It really gave the impression that a lot of the top brass over at Rockstar were purely motivated by ego in many cases, as well as showing that there was a very stressful relationship regarding them and Take-Two, and how a lot of the money was being changed hands as well as where credit was being doled out. Post all of that, taking his name and his fame as the Benz, Leslie started up his own company, Build a Rocket Boy, working on their first game everywhere, taking investors from New York and China. That was in 2019, and actually Build a Rocket Boy are coming out with their first game, not everywhere, no, it's MindsEye, which is coming out like this month. Now, you've probably seen MindsEye because it was featured at big events, but honestly, I think that the vibe it gave people was like that original demo for Watch Dogs 1, where you look at it and you're like, oh, this is a fake game. This doesn't actually exist. None of this is actual gameplay, and if it is, it looks strange. It looks like it should be fake and not in a good way. Well, it turns out that on the preview road of MindsEye, previews have been exceptionally bad, to the point that when I see somebody say something neutral about it or just like randomly post a trailer on X or something, you know, those accounts that just like post news and stuff, it feels kind of like a psyop or an undisclosed ad at this point. Like, look at this is from a former Rockstar director, look at this, MindsEye looks great. When all of the previews have said that the game is a buggy, janky mess of a 15-hour main campaign that is actually not very enjoyable, that the driving isn't very good, that the shooting is just standard, that the AI is kind of miserable, and that the story can be outright laughable. Just saying, not looking very hot for MindsEye. And the reaction from the executives over at Build a Rocket Boy, not Leslie specifically, but yes, the co-CEO, Mark Gerhard, has been very bad. Mark said about the previews that they're fake. Oh yeah, they're not real. Actually, Rockstar is paying previewers to give this game very negative previews, and they're going to do the same when it comes to reviews because they want his new company to fail. This is all Rockstar chasing him down to make his life miserable and tank his company and ruin the lives of all of the employees and the developers hard at work on this game, because there is absolutely no chance that his game is actually just mid as hell. There's no shot that the previewers are actually just, you know, giving their opinions. They had to be paid off by Rockstar, which I'm sure, like Rockstar right now working on GTA 6, that's more realistic than thinking that they don't even remember he exists. And you might say, that's a really weird thing to say. Did he actually say that? That sounds like just a conspiracy theory of a person lashing out that doesn't make a lot of sense for a CEO. Oh, don't worry. He posted it in Discord. It was his account. He definitely thinks this, and he's not afraid to shout it to the high heavens and say that actually his game is great and everybody who has a negative opinion of it must have been paid by Rockstar. Great look, Benz. Definitely inspiring confidence for your first commercial product to come out. I'm sure people are going to love MindsEye. Can't wait to check that one out later. Sometimes I wonder if I'm in a bubble and I'm losing my mind. Is it just me, or should people like this not be allowed to run huge companies at which people, you know, work and have their livelihoods depend on? Does nobody really think it's kind of strange that we let these people come out here and talk about stuff in ways that can just absolutely tank a project and like ruin a lot of a company and the people that depend on it just because they don't know how to keep their mouths shut or react like normal human beings? Is it just me? Does everybody else think this is okay? Leave your answer in the comments below. Now we're almost done. We're coming to a close here. There's just 2 left and a bonus because there's a point that I want to make. Now, the one that's in the middle is actually Pete Parsons, which is the CEO over at Bungie. Now, Bungie has had a number of problems over time, including multiple lawsuits and letting people go and just stuff happening. But I did want to remind people because I think it's something that kind of flew under the radar, and now that everybody's talking about Bungie again, Pete Parsons actually fired 220 people after he spent $2.3 million on cars. He showed off how much he had spent on cars. He invited members of Bungie to see his cars the day before he went into the office and fired them. Which people like to remind others that Satoru Iwata over at Nintendo did take a 50% pay cut in order to preserve jobs at Nintendo when they weren't doing that hot. Which is just a very important thing to remember, that you don't need to be selfless and all caring about your company to be a good CEO. You don't need to take a pay cut to preserve jobs. You don't need to be heavily invested in video games. You don't need to know how to make good video games or how to really read the market or understand customers or present a united front and a valid philosophy for your company. But you gotta do one of those things. You gotta at least have one. And it's kind of crazy that so many of these guys are just like, it's not that they don't have any, it's that they seem to try and have as many active, like, against it as you can. Here's my 2.3 million in new cars. Do you like them? Anyways, the company's not doing so well, despite it kind of doing okay, but we need to downsize, so you're gone. Thank you for looking at my cars. The final boss of just CEOs who don't understand what their companies even do has to be Andrew Wilson over at EA. Now look, Andrew over the years has said many things that are highly suspect of him having ever played a video game. Kind of a bit of a Strauss-Zelnick vibe there. He's made a lot of comments about Respawn. He's made comments about DICE. He's made a lot of comments about things. He thinks Respawn is doing fine, and Respawn just had to fire a bunch of people and cancel more projects. So that's good. Thank you, Andrew. Definitely great input. You're earning your money. Once again, I said this at the very start of the video, which is probably a very long time ago. EA is underperforming, and their cash cow, which is EA Sports FC, is not doing hot right now. For the first time basically since forever, it's declining, and it's not looking good. Recent reports say that, for example, the morale over at Respawn is in a free fall, not unlike Bungie after the art stealing disaster there. It's just not good vibes at all, and I really don't think that the person at the helm, Andrew Wilson, knows what he's doing. But the quote that I've chosen to highlight here of CEOs just not knowing what they're doing is from the earnings report, in which he had to face the music and talk about the fact that EA Sports FC was not generating the profit that they normally would expect from it, and actually led to the first year in many years where EA is on the negative. During that, he stepped up to the plate and said that the reason for Dragon Age the Veilguard performing less than 50% of what was expected and needed of it was because of the lack of live service elements. And look, there's a chance that you're brand new to this channel, so you don't know what a lot of what I do here is. Let me be clear that I don't think live services are terrible. I don't think live services are the worst thing in the world. I just think that they are not the money makers that people think they are. They are very often very bad for the customer, just predatory in their monetization and harmful to video games. But they can be incredibly fun. You just need to make sure you make a good live service game. You need to start from the beginning to make something that's very competitive in a competitive market, unique, and is actually going to treat the customer well. And if you do, you might see success. It's still a very risky business. And my problem with live services is that it seems that everybody under the sun, plus their grandma and I guess their toddler, all seem to believe that live services are everything, including, of course, Andrew Wilson. Oh, you know what would make everything better? Just turn Dragon Age into a live service. Like, because last time we put multiplayer in this, that was great, right? Everybody knows that BioWare's biggest success was Anthem. That was sarcasm, by the way. Now, we could say that he is just pretending, that all he's doing is marketing speak to really justify the earnings reports. But if we dig back into a lot of what Andrew Wilson has said over the years, I don't think that's true, actually. I think that Andrew really does believe that the problem with BioWare is that they didn't make a live service. And that's just a terrible read on the industry at the moment and what is actually necessary to make successful games in a niche like fantasy RPGs. If already so many people felt betrayed by what the Veilguard was compared to the rest of the franchise, imagine if it had just been a full live service game. Which does lead me to the final point I want to make in this video, and I'm actually not going to make it using a CEO, I'm going to use it with voice actor Alex Wilton Regan, also known as the female MC in Dragon Age Inquisition and the Veilguard. Recently in an interview with IGN, she mentioned that the reason the Veilguard didn't do well is because a lot of people wanted it to fail before it ever launched, and I think that's a very interesting perspective to have. It's basically jumping onto the bandwagon that there's a bunch of people that look at games or the people making them or outside factors or political statements that might be related to a game and then campaign for them to fail. And just in case anybody needs a reminder, that is not what I do here and I never will. I will always and forever be pro video games and I want great video games to succeed. But what truly bothers me about the way that Alex is kind of portraying its failure as something outside of the hands of BioWare, the not taking accountability for the actual failures of the game, is that the game's failure was documented not by the people who didn't want it to succeed and never bought it and never played it, it's documented by the people who did. Similar to many reviewers who actually didn't recommend the Veilguard, we can see a very natural trend that at the very start, when the Veilguard released and people got their hands on it, its reviews were mostly positive. People were really enjoying it and what it brought to the table, and they had very high hopes and aspirations for how the game would progress. And then when people kept playing, including myself, you kind of realize that it's not that good anymore. And while it does have some positives to it, it just kind of leaves you feeling empty in many different ways, including from the perspective of what you might want from a Dragon Age game. And it just feels very uneven and kind of long and padded out in ways that aren't interesting. A lot of the decision making isn't great, and the companions are so hit and miss that you might get whiplash from them. And it's then that those reviews on platforms like Steam turn to mixed. It's then that the people who actually put more and more time into the game realize that it wasn't that good, that those recommendations went down and the game kind of lost steam, and then it ended up being free on PS Plus shortly thereafter because people didn't want to recommend it because its reputation had been earned not from what people said before it came out, but from what people said after. I don't like the idea of trying to blame failures on external factors because I'm a big fan on taking accountability. And I do believe that a CEO's job at the end of the day is to take accountability for some of those failures and really try and, well, do their job and steer the ship. And it is precisely because of that that a lot of the behavior and a lot of the comments, that a lot of these things, a lot of these many different things we've seen in this video worry me. And chief among them is the idea of ever saying it wasn't our fault. Actually, it wasn't the game. It's never the game. It's not that the game was mid. It's not that the game was bad. It's not that the game was misguided from day one. It was outside factors. It was the customer. The customer's crazy, man. They're never right. Whatever it is, it wasn't our fault, and it definitely wasn't the game. And I just feel like the more that this attitude is spread, be it for marketing reasons and saving face, or be it genuinely, as I suspect it really is in many of these companies, that is kind of a poison that seeps in throughout them, and one that I feel should be eliminated. So hey, somebody has to keep these people accountable, and I'm gonna laugh my way through doing that. And I hope you enjoyed doing that with me today. Because yeah, I've been Mug, and thank you for watching. Another extra special thanks to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Remember that you can click the linkies in the description, and not for mobile, but for PC and console, you can get that welcome backpack with the 100,000 silver lions, the cosmetics, and the 7 days of premium. War Thunder knew what this video was about when they sponsored it, by the way. So I'm just gonna say thank you. I'm not sure many gaming companies would have been like, yeah, this is a good video we want to sponsor. So shout outs to War Thunder. But really a huge shout out to you. I hope you had a great time and that you enjoyed this, that you found some of this informative and funny. And if you did, remember the like button, and if I've earned your subscription, the subscription button is right there. And a very extra special thanks to the members of The Wall. These are the patrons and the members here on YouTube that directly support everything I do and offer me the time and some of the peace of mind to really sit down and make sure that I can create a video that I think is going to be worth your time instead of just jumping on every news piece and reacting to it or something. And I hope I did that today by covering some of these recent developments in a way that's a little bit different and fun. Thank you for watching. Go out there and enjoy some excellent video games if you can. And as always, I'll see you again very soon.